This is Owl Talk,
a Sigma Pi podcast
featuring stories,
news, updates, and more
from the world of Sigma Pi fraternity.
Welcome back, everyone. On this episode of the Owl Talk podcast, we are glad to bring you another fireside chat-style conversation with our Grand Sage Christian Miele. As always, there are a lot of things going on in the fraternity world and, of course, in the world of Sigma Pi fraternity. We have a lot to talk about, and so without further delay, I'd like to welcome Christian back to the Owl Talk podcast. Welcome, Christian.
Joe, great to be back with you.
There is so much going on in the world of Sigma Pi fraternity. We have an executive director search going on. We have preparations well underway for our 58th biennial convocation down in Orlando, Florida. We're deep in the middle of fall recruitment and new member education. Grand Council nominations are open. You've been traveling to some chapters to bring the good word of Sigma Pi directly to our brothers. There's a lot going on. So maybe we can start with your recent travels on behalf of the fraternity. Can you tell us about where you've been and what you've seen?
Yeah, absolutely. We've been on the road quite a bit. As I'm sure most, if not all, listeners know, the Grand Council is a volunteer board of directors for the national organization, and so that being said, we do try to get out and visit as many chapters and attend as many national leadership programs and conferences as we can. And so we actually started a lot of travel this past summer as we were heading into the busy fall semester. We had the Tony Cyrus Leadership Summit that was held in Georgia back in June, and that was an amazing program. We had about 50 attendees from our chapters throughout the country, and it was the first truly national format Tony Cyrus Leadership Summit. In the past, we sort of piloted this program in our provinces at the sort of more the regional level, and this was the first time that we actually opened it up nationwide. And so, what I love about Tony Cyrus is it brings together alumni who are expert in their vocational fields, and they get to talk about their experiences and share those experiences with the collegiate members of the fraternity. And it's really as opposed to the Engage program, which is very Sigma Pi centric, very Sigma Pi heavy in terms of fraternity and chapter operations. The Tony Cyrus Leadership Summit, Joe, as you know, it's more geared toward professional development, how to really thrive once you graduate, whether it's about strategy and planning and branding or financial literacy. It just really gives our members a lot of tools to take with them into the workplace once they do graduate. So that was a fantastic program, and our staff did such a nice job with that. And obviously want to thank the alumni who were so giving of their time and talent to make that event such a success. Right after that, about 3 weeks later, Joe, the Grand Council flew down to Orlando, Florida, which is the site of our 58th biennial convocation, which will be June 18th to the 21st of 2026. And we flew down to the Rosen Center in Orlando to do a site visit of the convention site. And we are just so excited about what Orlando has to offer. It's a great location, a great resort. It's got an awesome swimming pool. It's got a nice gym. It is walking distance to a highly touted and acclaimed entertainment and dining complex where they've got some really great restaurants and nightlife. And so I think there's going to be plenty to do if you are a brother who's either attending their 10th or 11th convocation like you or me, or whether it'll be your very first one. We're really excited about the program and getting everybody to Orlando next summer. And then most recently, I went to visit our Alpha Phi chapter at the University of Georgia, and I went to the Georgia-Kentucky football game. It was their parents' weekend, so I got to interact with a lot of the parents of our Alpha Phi chapter brothers, and then Georgia beat Kentucky in the game. So obviously it was a home game for Georgia, and really exciting to be there. So a lot different experience than what I'm used to. I went to a school that did not have a football stadium that holds 100,000 plus people, but always good to visit our SEC chapters, especially during football season.
I always try to explain to people that college football is different in our part of the world. Of course, you and I are both from New Jersey, even though you're down in Maryland now. And it's not that we don't watch it, it's not that we don't celebrate it, but it's just different. It's just different up here, you know?
Oh, absolutely.
And I think you feel that in a more unique way when you're at an SEC school during a college football game day in the fall. So I want to hit on a couple of these topics that you brought up. Just to go back to Tony Cyrus for a moment, Christian, maybe you can tell our listeners because you mentioned that this is more about professional development, but it's not just about professional development. It's about getting the chapters to connect with one another. It's not just regionalized, like you said. This is our first time trying to do it as a national program. And one of the great takeaways is that you meet guys from around the country when you go to an event like that one, don't you?
Oh, absolutely. Yeah. And it's sort of, yeah, convocation in miniature in many respects. And to plug Convo again, I really do hope that everybody out there listening, makes plans to attend next summer, because it really does make you appreciate that you are part of a national brotherhood, a national fraternity, and the connections that you make at these events are lifelong connections. For the listeners, Joe and I, while we grew up in the same state, went to different chapters, and it had not been for us attending some of these national programs, would have never met and continued a friendship on 20 25 years later. And so yeah, it's an amazing opportunity to network and build those connections, and then as you come back throughout the years as an alum, to rekindle those connections and friendships. So there's nothing better.
Absolutely, absolutely. By the way, I think it'll be my 13th convocation coming up next summer, which is
Yeah,
pretty
I
cool.
think you've got me beat by one. I'm not sure if you went to Phoenix. I think it was Phoenix in 2000. My first
No.
one was in '02 in Philly, and the only one I missed was Niagara when you got elected Grand Sage. So I do apologize. I
Well,
missed
how
missed
dare you,
your
Christian?
big day.
How dare you? That was a great convocation. We had let me tell you something. The folks at Niagara Falls were great to work with. They gave us the entire convention center up there. Now, look, admittedly, the Niagara Falls Convention Center is not, like the Chicago Convention Center, for goodness sake, but they gave us the whole thing and they were wonderful to work with. It was great and a nice location. Hopefully we go back there at some point. Just on this bit about convocation. Can you maybe talk to our listeners for a moment or two about some of the plans that are underway to make the next convocation a really great experience for everyone who's going to be in attendance?
Yeah, absolutely. So for those who have never been to a convocation, or have maybe heard the word convocation but aren't really sure what it means. So convocation it's our once every 2 year meeting, or our biennial meeting, where the grand chapter is convened. And so the grand chapter is the supreme governing body of our fraternity, and it's comprised of delegates from each of the collegiate chapters, as well as delegates from all of our chartered alumni clubs and associations throughout the country. And then, of course, you have a number of permanent voting members. And if you're a past Grand Officer or a current Grand Officer, you also have a vote. What's unique about it is that each of the chapters delegates actually get to cast two votes. And so, given our history as a collegiate based organization, the collegiate members really do have an outsized influence over the future direction of the fraternity through the making of legislation and the electing of our next Grand Council, which is our National Board of Directors, as I mentioned earlier, your seven volunteer leaders. And so, obviously, convocation, there is some business that you have to conduct, but also it's in many respects sort of a celebration, or I would say the marquee celebration of Sigma Pi fraternity on a once every 2 year basis. So it's our Super Bowl. I've heard it described as our Super Bowl, and it really truly is. It's the most well attended event every 2 years. It's the most exciting. It's truly that celebration experience. And so, in addition to the business sessions, we have a number of social functions planned. We have a number of educational and leadership based talks for our members to enjoy. And so I'll kind of just walk you through. And right now we're deep into the planning stage, and so we're not quite ready to release the finalized agenda yet. But what I can tell you is that, per usual, it's basically a Thursday to Sunday. Sunday is your travel home day, but the programming really starts on Thursday and it continues Friday, Saturday. So Thursday we'll kick things off in late afternoon, early evening with our opening reception, or our kickoff celebration, and that's going to be at a local. It's called Tacos and Tequila, a local establishment where we'll have some food. and everyone will get a chance to kind of hang out and sort of break bread together and get to kind of meet each other. That's really the only a formal part of the program on Thursday, whereas Friday morning we'll actually officially kick things off with our procession in the morning, and obviously we will have our ritual opening of the convocation, and we'll have a number of reports from committees, and we'll have reports from the grand officers, and you'll hear from staff on a number of things. And then you and me, Joe, as you know, we'll be presenting a two-part educational talk on the history of Sigma Pi. And so when I referred earlier to Convocation as being a celebration, it really is that opportunity to reflect on what makes our fraternity so unique and so worth celebrating. And so one of the things that really makes us all Sigma Pi, in addition to the ritual, is our shared history. And so your host, Past Grand Sage Palazzolo, and I are going to be doing a two-part sort of educational talk on both the origin story of Sigma Pi, and then Joe, you'll be obviously doing your traditional talk on the Patterson episode, which is really how we became a national fraternity, how we assumed the name Sigma Pi, and all the lore and the fantastic stuff that goes along with that. And so, in addition to that, we on Friday after our business sessions, we have our model initiation scheduled, and so that's another great opportunity for members to celebrate the ritual and the values of the organization. We'll be welcoming some new members into the fold during that ceremony. It'll be preceded by about a 15 or 20-minute overview of why we have a ritual, how it's evolved, what it means, all that sort of thing. And again, that's a great learning opportunity for chapters who are either trying to improve their proficiency in the ritualistic work of the organization, or just for people who want to celebrate Sigma Pi again and all that makes us brothers. And so, and then on Saturday, we have a couple of keynote speakers that are tentatively penciled in. We'll probably be doing some programming around mental health and leadership development and things of that nature. And then, of course, we have our grand chapter banquet on Saturday night, which is where we give out our top awards. It's where we actually break bread together and have dinner together. It's a fancy, sort of more formal dinner. We give out the Grand Sages Award. You'll hear speeches from, the incoming, outgoing Grand Sage. And, it's just a really a unique thing where we sing the Fireside song together, 300 plus people in a room singing the Fireside song. And speaking of, how many convocations we've attended, there's always this really interactive thing where every brother stands up and then we say, if it's your first convocation, you can now sit down. And then if it's your second convocation, you can now sit down, third, fourth, fifth, etc. And by the end, the last men standing are those brothers who have been to, dozens literally of convocations. And it's just really a unique way to celebrate and honor our history and to honor the men who have given back by coming year after year as volunteers and as people who want to see the fraternity do well. So
Really is a
very exciting.
celebration. Really is a celebration of Sigma Pi. I love the time and the energy and effort that goes into celebrating the successes of our undergraduates and our alumni clubs and the work of our chapters as a whole. It's one of the best parts of Convocation for me. And I'm glad you brought up the model initiation. So here's just a heads up for anyone listening to this who plans on going to Convocation next summer. If you go, I promise you by the time we get to the model initiation, you'll be tired. You're going to want to skip it and you're going to want to go upstairs and relax in your hotel room. Please don't. It is one of the most powerful parts of the entire event. And not only do you get to see the ritual performed at a pretty high level, but you get a chance to sit back and relax and enjoy that very unique shared experience that all Sigma Pi brothers have gone through over the last 120 plus years. So give that a shot, folks. You'd really like it. Anyway, it's an important part of Convocation for me. Let's move over to fall recruitment and to new member education. I know in some parts of the country, the fall is the big recruitment semester. In other parts of the country, up here in the Northeast, the spring is the big recruitment semester. But here we are in the fall. What are you seeing out there in terms of recruitment and new member education?
Yeah, well, great question, Joe. We're continuing to see our groups who do have their sort of big recruitment in the fall doing just a phenomenal job of recruiting and pinning their new members, getting their 6-week new member education processes underway. And like I mentioned, I was just at our University of Georgia chapter, and they took just a really large new member class, and it's just so interesting to see how every chapter is able to manage that process differently. I mean, especially, there are groups that, listening, there your members from chapters listening right now that may not even have a chapter house. They may have a satellite house, or they may meet in a classroom. And so just as you go from campus to campus, how different that experience is. And I've often wondered how it's possible to have a 100 plus new member class and to functionally make that work. And so but our chapters continue to impress in that regard. And not only that, we are seeing just a much better retention rate. And so the men who are joining as new members, who go on to initiate, that number has vastly increased, and that is a really, really good sign. It means that there's value in the experience that we're providing our members. The educational value is there, the brotherhood is there, where people want to, some people may join a fraternity because they just kind of want to check it out, and then they quickly realize, hey, this isn't for me. But I think we're seeing on an increasing level that there is value when they join, and that they want to stick with it, and go on to become brothers, and then go on to become leaders in their chapters. So that's a really positive trend.
Absolutely. I always saw that retention rate as a leading indicator of chapter quality, because really what it speaks to is the depth and the work that goes into recruiting the next generation of Sigma Pi brothers. You could be a chapter that just opens the door and says, "Hey, if you want to be in, come on in. Here's a set of letters, welcome to the fraternity." Or you could
Right.
really put some intentionality into the men you recruit to be the next generation of Sigma Pi guys, and that retention rate is always a leading indicator for me. It's usually a indicator that the chapter is of high quality. Usually, you see those chapters win awards at Convocation.
Oh, absolutely. Yeah, and one thing I'll double click back or circle back on this is, there's going to be we're going to continue that tradition of Convocation, Joe, where obviously the big awards, your Grand Sages Awards, your Founders Awards, are presented at that grand chapter banquet on the final night, the Saturday night of Convocation. But we're having a luncheon. It's a Grand Chapter Awards luncheon to celebrate all the other groups who may not necessarily be the Grand Sage Award winning chapter, but we have awards for Most Improved Chapter. We have awards recognizing chapter excellence. We have awards recognizing individual chapter brothers who are outstanding students or fraternity leaders on their campus. And so we're going to be recognizing them as well. So yeah, it's really, really important that that we do that, and so we have that as part of our programming to celebrate those achievements.
Absolutely. So, on to the next topic. A few weeks ago, the fraternity announced that it opened a formal search for its next executive director. Do you have maybe a brief update on that process for our listeners?
Yeah, so we've gone live with our search for the fraternity's next executive director. The executive director is basically the top professional staff member at our executive office. So they are essentially in charge of running the day-to-day operations of Sigma Pi, ensuring that chapter services are getting provided, making sure that our programs are being planned, making sure that our budget is being attended to. All of those important functions do not fall on the Grand Council, which again is your volunteer elected board, which is more um, their goal is, or their charge really is to set the strategic direction and vision of the organization, and is ultimately accountable for its success. But the magic really happens at the executive office level, where you have your paid staff, your chapter consultants, your expansion leads. Your executive director obviously kind of oversees all of that, and so it's an important job. We've only had a handful of executive directors in our history, and the first one, obviously, Harold Jacobson, Jake, who I'm sure many of you have read about in the I Believe manual. He opened the executive office in May of 1927. So in that time, on average, you have an executive director in place for about a decade, give or take. And so it's a big role, and as I sort of mentioned, the application process is open. I believe it closes on November 14th. So depending on when you're listening to this, please spread the word to any alumni or professionals who may be up to the task of leading a nonprofit organization such as Sigma Pi, with such a unique vision and mission. And so we have posted the job search on your LinkedIn's, on Indeed, and all of those job search sites. It's also been posted internally through our email database. It's you can find a link to the application on sigmapi.org as well. So we're trying to cast a wide net. We'd love to see lots and lots of applications come in, so that the search committee has a lot of great options to choose from for the betterment of the organization.
Great, and good luck to you and everyone who's involved in that search. Speaking of new leadership, the fraternity also announced, that was about a week or so ago, that applications are open for the next Grand Council. So is there any information, any additional context that our listeners should know about applying to be a candidate for the next Grand Council?
Yeah, great question again. So January 15th is the prescribed deadline in our Constitution and bylaws for those interested in serving on the Grand Council. That is that deadline to get your candidacy filed. And so sort of what that means is you have to ultimately prepare a sort of a vision statement for what are those areas that you're looking to improve, or what programs or initiatives would you like to see be put in place to advance the fraternity and to move it forward. So you've got to really think, I think, as a candidate, think critically about where we're at as an organization, where you'd like to see us going as an organization. You also have to, subject yourself to a background check, and also do an ethics disclosure, so that service on the Grand Council as a volunteer would not conflict with any of your other responsibilities to the fraternity, and so that you don't have a conflict of interest between service as a Grand Council member and as a volunteer in some, or as a paid individual in some other capacity that does business with Sigma Pi. There is also, in addition to the what I would call, the constitutional requirements, Grand Council members have themselves decided to take things to the next level. And in addition to what's required, people who want to serve on the Grand Council also obligate themselves to a number of other requirements, I guess you can call. So, for example, if you're a member of the Grand Council and you are going around the country and asking alumni to donate money to our educational foundation to fund scholarships or CEFs, or you are asking our alumni to donate to Sigma Pi University to help fund Tony Cyrus Leadership Summit, or to help fund Engage, it makes it kind of difficult to ask other alumni to do their part when you're not doing your part, especially as a leader of the national organization. So Grand Council members have taken it upon themselves to say, I will give or get. So I will myself donate, or I will generate through asking other people to donate $10,000 per biennium, or $5,000 a year if you're to average it out, to demonstrate your belief in the impact of these programs and scholarship opportunities, and to really just lead the way and be an exemplary leader in the organization. So, it is important, I think, as a nonprofit, that the board actually does sort of step up in that regard and lead the way. So there is that fundraising component, which you'll see in many a nonprofit. I know, Joe, you can attest to that. I know you're involved with a lot of nonprofit organizations. It's very common for board members, volunteer board members, to take a big part in fundraising. So that has been a pretty major shift in the last few bienniums, where your folks who are wanting to lead the organization also have a lot of skin in the game, and they're invested in the programs that they are developing or seeing be developed.
Yeah, that give or get was one of my favorite parts of being on the Grand Council, believe it or not. When you are as committed to the success of Sigma Pi fraternity as all of our Grand Council members are and were, it's one of the easier questions that you can ask alumni and other friends and supporters when you're out there traveling the country is, hey, can you support us in some way? And
Right.
I always thought it was a natural extension of the work that we do as advocates for the fraternity as members of the Grand Council. And you're right, Christian, the highest quality nonprofit organizations, they're the ones that have some form of a give or get. Depending upon the size of the organization, that can be a really large dollar amount. For all the folks listening, every college that you went to, the board of trustees of that college, that university, they have their form of a give or get. And it's natural for this work. And it's a great question to ask. It's a great question to go out there and talk to alumni from around the world, really, and say, hey, how can you help support the next generation of Sigma Pi brothers? So
Yeah.
I'm
Yeah. And
glad.
if you're an alum out there, if you're someone who's considering running for the Grand Council, um, and you feel like that's a pretty heavy lift to be able to, donate that money yourself. I mean, it's great in the sense that it gives you the flexibility where you can go raise that money by just picking up the phone and calling brothers. And we have a lot of great programs. Our foundation and SPU have a lot of great programs where you can donate as much as, or as little as you want. So you can do $18.97 a month, or you can just say, hey, I'm going to do $1,000 a year. And so, you can very quickly, by calling enough people and by traveling the country and talking to alumni, if you're someone interested in serving on the Grand Council, where you can have those conversations and say, hey, I'm giving myself X amount of dollars. Will you match me, or will you give, $50 a month, or whatever the case may be? And then you can quickly get there and meet your minimum requirement. But as Joe said, it really was sort of a paradigm shift for our organization, that we would ensure that our leaders are not just talking the talk but walking the walk with their dollars and with their giving.
Absolutely. And by the way, that match that Christian just brings up, that's a great way to generate significant support very quickly. Christian, I've got one more question for you. Of course, as you know, Sigma Pi fraternity has a new slogan. It's find your purpose. Can you talk about how Sigma Pi helped you find your purpose during your undergraduate years? And then maybe you can talk a little bit about how Sigma Pi has helped you find your purpose during your alumni years too.
Yeah, that's a great question. It's one that so at our Grand Council retreat last fall, we the board had met in Nashville, Tennessee, and we just talked about, vision for Sigma Pi, and we kept coming back to this idea of the why we do what we do, what the purpose of the organization is. And to a man, each member on the Grand Council expressed in different ways, which is what's so beautiful about it, but in different ways, how the fraternity helped shape their life, helped make them the professional that they have become, and helped enrich their life in a way that without Sigma Pi, they just don't feel like they'd be the same person. And so that's really where the Find Your Purpose slogan was sort of born, from those conversations. And for me personally, I went to college not really knowing probably anything really about Greek letter organizations and fraternities, and so I obviously ended up joining, and I joined the spring semester of my freshman year. And the fraternity for me became a vehicle to develop my leadership skills, my interpersonal skills, my comfort level with public speaking, and my confidence level, being in a room full of people who may not always agree on which direction to go, but sort of gave me the ability to work within a diverse group of men, and to create goals, and to go and then go and achieve those goals collectively. And so that experience, I think for me, it was life changing. I had never in a million years aspired to go into public service or to go run for office. And after I went to law school, using all of those Sigma Pi lessons, I was able to just run for the state legislature and win a seat in the Maryland House of Delegates. Something I absolutely can say would never have happened if it wasn't for my Sigma Pi experience. And just the confidence that it gave me to go out there and set lofty goals, and then achieve my dreams. And so I heard that was I should say, it was a very common refrain among the board members who discussed this, that in some way, shape, or form, Sigma Pi had a major, not just an impact, but a major impact on their ability to kind of shape their life the way that made the most sense to them, and that gave them purpose that they could fulfill. So hopefully that answers your question, and I'm hoping that brothers will see this campaign as a way to make them stop and think about, it doesn't just have to be going into a leadership role, like it did for me or some other brothers, but really going into Sigma Pi, and realizing that the fraternity is so much larger than yourself, and that by being thrown into the mix of a group of guys who are from all different backgrounds and coming from all different places, making that work really is sort of a microcosm for the world at large, and what awaits you after you graduate. And so finding out what is important to you, what your purpose is in life, and then using the fraternity experience as a training ground to go and find that purpose, and to go explore it, I think is just an opportunity that you get outside of the classroom that you just don't get anywhere else during your college experience. And so, yeah, I think find your purpose makes a lot of sense for us as an organization because, fraternity naturally, you think of a group because, we are a group of men, but each of us comes into it with our own individual ideas, identities, and things that we want to accomplish in life. And through the opportunities and the education that you get in Sigma Pi, it just really does enhance who you are as a person. You kind of discover the best version of yourself, and then you can go out there and live that purpose and achieve all your goals. So it's pretty cool.
Awesome perspective on the new slogan, brother. Well said. Hey, thank you for another great fireside chat, Christian. Before we go, do you have any parting words or ideas or some thoughts for our listeners?
Yeah, well, again, I plugged it earlier. I'll plug it again. Convocation, you don't want to miss it. I say this honestly and genuinely. If you've never attended a convocation, you have not experienced Sigma Pi. You just haven't. There's nothing like it. You've got to do it at least once. I hope that if you've been at least once, you'll come back. I know you'll be back, obviously. I mean, I was hooked from the first time. Make plans to be there. Start saving money if you have to get there. Chapters obviously know this. If you have a zero balance, if you don't owe any money on your account to the executive office, your delegate does come free of charge. For any, the alternate delegate and any other brothers, make sure to set aside some funds to get your way to Orlando. And that's another thing. Maybe I'll click on that a second time, Joe, is just because you're not the voting delegate of your chapter doesn't mean that you can't go. Convocation is open to every Sigma Pi brother, every collegiate member, every alumni member. We want as many people as possible to go. That's what makes it so special. The networking, the opportunities to build those bonds and strengthen those bonds, it's unmatched anywhere else in the fraternity world. So again, mark your calendars for June 18th to the 21st for Convocation. We hope to see you there.
Awesome. Thank you, Christian.
Thanks, Joe.
This is Owl Talk, a Sigma Pi podcast
featuring stories, news, updates, and more
From the world of Sigma Pi fraternity.